Is he also?
It's not a vote.
That's enough. What do you mean by doing? Like just set up,
Yeah, like I told you the other day.
That I didn't know that.
Like I absolutely.
Oh, I don't think that would. Yeah, I don't think that would be.
I made up my mind.
Monday night.
Yeah, come back to me for more.
I guess I'm glad that a lot of people want to do it.
I'm at a council meeting and get ready to start. Let me call you back on that.
They should have phones that before they.
Well, can I call like say around give me the details. And you know, I was just going to have you ask your dad, like, since he did sell it, that's pretty good. Is he willing to sell? Yeah, you know, would he be willing to sell it today?
There's a lot of parts over there.
All of it?
Before we go through this, I just want to be clear. There's parts of me that. No.
Cool, okay. All right, I'll think about that. I'll call you tomorrow morning.
Trust me, after BGA was 3 hours, 50 people. It was like
Right.
I don't even know. There's a few of us that don't even know they're Yeah. Can't wait for tomorrow. You gotta work. You got attendance is up.
Taylor's like, man, they're hanging the
Well, I just said that in the court, one lady ran the grass. Swore in. I'm very terms.
That's right.
Yeah, so.
You gave her some outrageous number out there.
I was like, well, I can't tell her. I was like, they're all like this. She's like, are they? I was like, no. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? It's Plain City, one word, all lowercase.
The school and there's a sheet there's a 45-day limit that has to expire. According to my office.
How do their stuff do?
Yep, with what he's doing.
Oh, she's gone.
Yep. Hey, they're getting ready to do the press release. I'll call tomorrow morning, man. Thanks, man.
Is that where we're going? She's talking about the first.
So, is there anything in particular?
I thought about it. Hey, Frank.
That's good.
Hey, Frank. Frank,
Anything in particular?
can you pass me the water? Thanks, man.
Change it. That's what I had to do. Just slept on it and woke up and said, oh, yeah, this is where we should go. Cool. It's good to have experience.
I went by there and I saw
That's
flags were going, so I'm very happy.
Yes. It takes a while. And you're constantly returning.
Haley, are we, do we need to turn it on? It'll see us without us seeing it.
Last time it has
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Okay, everybody, you ready?
Yeah.
What's the big number? So let's
I think we should skip the group.
do some work. And get together.
No, I think we should. Supposedly Thursday.
Well, maybe.
Okay, be ready.
I generally.
I can ask that. Okay.
Okay, ready?
Because I was going to hold it
I'd like to call this meeting of the Village Council to order. If everybody would stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Lupton, if you would call the roll.
Mayor Carney?
Here.
Mr. Rucker?
Here.
Ms. Giano?
Here.
Ms. Heineman?
Here.
Ms. Pine? Mr. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Terry?
Here.
Thank you. Approval of the July 26th council meeting agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Since there's additional speakers, do we have to say amended?
If
We
you want them
do
on the
have.
agenda, yeah, I think we would need to amend it. 'Cause
Okay.
I think we've
also-
We have
we've
two.
added.
We had two on the agenda, and we have added. If everybody would like to accept this, Eric Medici, Ina Medici, Mike Walters, Rochelle Pellegrin, and that is who I have down as the visitors.
Motion to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
Madam Chair, I just got one quick thing. Now that we have a rules committee, which I believe we do since we passed that thing, that maybe when we want to add to the reports, a rules committee report.
We have a motion and a second on the table to approve the amended agenda for this evening, which will include the Rules Committee as a report. Ms. Lupton, if you take the roll.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Giano?
Yes.
Heineman?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Agenda is approved. Minutes, is there a motion to approve the June, that should be, July 7th.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. July 7th, council meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Terry?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Heineman?
Yes.
Giano?
Yes.
Rucker?
Yes.
This evening, we have a special recognition ceremony, and I will, at this time, turn this over to Chief McKee.
Good evening, thanks, Mayor. As you all know, we've been interviewing for the next sergeant position. After an internal interview process, a panel interview process, and assessment, Officer Darren Howard has been chosen to move to the sergeant's position, to be promoted to the sergeant's position. A little bit of history about Darren. He started here, he just celebrated his 8th year, just I think a month ago, right? Here at the police department. I always tell my guys they don't need to wear stripes on their shoulders or a title before their name or eagles on their shoulders to be a leader. And Aaron has actually really demonstrated that very well through his career here. He's our field training officer. With that, I think he's trained the last 5 or 6 officers. Most of these guys here, he trained. He's our self-defense coordinator. He's also our TASER instructor. So with that, I'd like to present him and congratulate him with the new sergeant promotion. Speech.
I didn't prepare a speech. I just want to thank everybody for my continued growth here at the department. It's been an honor to represent the city and do my best to work for a better department overall. Again, I really appreciate this opportunity. I want to make sure I continue to be an example to the other officers in the department.
Okay. And just so you know, he still holds a grudge because I beat him in push-ups.
How many years ago was that?
Frank asked how many years ago that was.
2.
Did
I
you
was
need,
half his age, or twice his age, and I was in uniform.
thank you and congratulations, Sergeant Howard.
And just so you know, that's effective this Friday, or the 29th.
On the 29th. Did you need to go take any pictures or?
Probably. Thanks.
Um,
I'll be back though.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the visitors section, we have several visitors. So we are going to honor the 2-minute visitor allotment to get up and speak. So I will call up our first visitor, James Skaggs.
I will try to be real brief on this. I am here to discuss again the Jefferson Village concerns that I have there. I have several pictures here that I would like to enter into a record of showing concerns that I have. And one of them is the closeness of the drive outlet they have over there. It is about pickup truck length from edge of it to the edge of my driveway. And there's already been one of the construction people almost get hit, people coming out of town, because they're within 50 feet of the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit, and so everybody's gunning to get out of town. I don't know why, but apparently they don't like Plain City that well. They want to leave it. But anyway, and then the other one is, according to the way that things are being constructed, this part of this drive of over 100 units is going to be coming right out across the road from my bedroom, with lights going in and out of there all night long. And this was a concern that I brought up several years ago when this was all started, and people ignored me. And then the next one that I have is, I asked questions then, and now I've got proof of it, is that when they built a pond, my question was asked. I asked questions, where is the water coming from? Well, the water's coming out of the ground. They went down so deep, and then when they hit water, they stopped. And this here is a picture taken on July the 17th of this year of how deep the water was on that day. And here it is a week later with no rain. And I talked to an engineer the other day, and he said that most of these ponds, they come from the ground. The water will come out of the ground, which is going to eventually affect my well and my neighbor's wells around us. It's going to take the water out of our wells. I already had an issue after Copperfield was built, and I had to go lower. Well, if this continues like this, then I want to know, do I get the bill Plain City for a new well that I'll have to drill in about a year or two? Because I addressed this a couple of years ago and I got ignored as to how this pond was going to be filled. And so I have a concern with that. I have a concern with the safety of the speed limit going out of town. I know you have nothing to do with it, and I know that the state's got people's hands tied, but this should be something that I feel council, zoning, and the developer should have taken a lot of consideration of before they started the development. Next thing only one more thing I have is, well, two. With the pond, who's going to take care of make sure there's no mosquitoes around the pond? Standing water. They already tell us to get rid of standing water. Well, they've created one. Then the next one is, does Plain City have any ordinance of how early construction can start? Because they have been starting over there before 7 o'clock. And that's kind of early. 6 o'clock is early to be making noises across the road. So that is all I've got.
Thank you. Mr. Cowhall, on the speed limits, because I know this has been a concern of many citizens of going on 42, is this something that we have been in discussions with ODOT as these developments are in the works?
Yeah, essentially, our discussions with ODOT is that since it's their US highway or LA right of way, as they call it, they determine the statutory speed limits. We can, in coordination with them, conduct speed studies to determine whether or not the speed limit should be reduced. The village's position, at least from staff level, is that it should be reduced, at least all the way to Alcott, especially as new development is occurring or whatnot. How do I say this? Reduction of the statutory speed limit on a U.S. highway, like 42, requires ODOT to kind of, they don't have as much flexibility as you would think they should, and much like the installation of new traffic signals at certain ODOT-controlled intersections, unfortunately, there has to be enough volume of accidents or other issues before it's warranted and from their legal framework. But as more development occurs, not only with this project, but if Oak Grove ever goes forward, we have a better case to attempt to drop the speed limit from right now it's 50 and actually exceeds the 55, I think, as soon as you go across the bridge, I believe. And try to drop that closer to 35 as you get past West Avenue, and try to extend that 35 zone, or at least at a minimum of 40 or 45, all the way to Alcott.
Because when I called District 6, they said that it had to be linear, the businesses on the front, but you think that housing would have the same?
Yeah, it's driven by traffic count, so that's the argument we're trying to make, is that it's synonymous with your business district.
Thank you. We will take your comments into work sessions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mark McClish?
That's me. First, thanks for listening to us tonight. A lot of my comments have to do with what Mr. Skaggs just mentioned. Same thing, I live on the west side of 42 there, right there, directly in front of Jefferson Village. We addressed this, I think you're the fourth mayor that we've addressed these problems with over the years. We didn't just come tonight for the first time. One of the main reasons I want to come here tonight is to get on the record again. I think we've gone to probably half a dozen council and zoning meetings over the last several years. I'm sure some of you recognize me. But the well situation really concerns me a lot, as Mr. Skaggs mentioned. I know there's some kind of Darby reclamation thing somewhere along the line. I don't exactly know how it works, but I know on the new ER zoning out there, we had a meeting the other night about for the engineer, Mr. Pizzino, told me that there was some sort of Darby reclamation thing that they had to adhere to in order to keep the groundwater, still have enough groundwater for wells, not only our wells, Plain City's wells, everybody's wells. And I don't know if that applies or not, but I was hoping that somebody could look into that and see if it does. Because right now I don't think that's happening. The other thing too is, again, on the traffic, it's unbelievable. There's literally thousands of vehicles a day go by there. And now we've got another problem with Jefferson Village being added to it. If somebody's going to take a right out of Alcott and go northbound, and somebody's coming southbound and has to stop for somebody to turn right, they swerve out there, and now we've got two cars going head on. There's not even a double yellow line there. Also, I don't know whether it can be targeted enforcement there or anything like that, or whether we can get a sign that says reduce speed ahead or something other than actually changing the speed limit. I don't know if it's prepare to stop or stop traffic ahead or something like that, because it's just something's going to happen there real bad, and unfortunately it's going to be when's it going to happen, not if it's going to happen. I don't know if 6 on Your Side's contacted you yet, Mayor. I don't know if they're going to talk to you about that or not, but I want to really bring this to everybody's attention because it's going to happen, and we listen to the screeches. We don't always hear the bang at the end, but there's probably 3 screeches a week, and then I think the last accident there was about 4 or 5 weeks ago at Alcott and 42 there. So I'm really concerned about it. I want to make sure everybody knows that, and I appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Medici?
I will try to make this brief too. This is a question for Paul. I'm going to hand this to him first. I have, sorry. This is your ordinance. This is one page out of your ordinance that the Design Review Board uses. Last council meeting I was here and I witnessed somebody say that the Design Review Board, the standards and guidelines established by the Secretary of the Interior do not apply to anything in the town other than the old Farmers Bank building. What I've found is that if you say falsehoods with enough conviction, enough times, people start believing it. That is just patently false. The Farmers Bank is on the National Register. That's a totally different, unrelated, and has zero to do with this. So Paul, I was told by Taylor Brill that you and her discussed this and found that the standards and guidelines established by the Secretary of the Interior did not apply to the historic district. That is what I was told during the design review board meeting a couple weeks ago. What is your position?
I'm not here to answer your questions on this stuff. We've given our opinion to the DRB members, and they're following that.
Okay, well, let me give council a little bit, and it would help for someone who owns multiple businesses in the historic district, would help if somebody would let us know that to start with. Read the second sentence. Board's approval of such new construction, reconstruction, alteration, and demolition shall be secured, blah, blah, blah. These 10 little items on here that have the letters by them, that is the executive summary from one section of the 4 that are in this guidelines. That's simply the executive summary. The 60 pages from that section that explain what those mean were implied by Taylor Brill to not exist and not be relevant. There's 60 pages that go along with that executive summary. And since you have new construction, reconstruction, alteration, and demolition listed, the actual terms are preserving, rehabilitating, restoring, and reconstructing. That's what the guidelines use, those 4 words. That is one section. New construction is omitted. If those 10 items there, again, I don't know what your ruling is, and since you won't answer me, I can't direct this conversation. But if those 10 are the only things you're relying on, then your second sentence is completely wrong. It's leaving out new construction, reconstruction, and demolition. So the intent of this paragraph is quite obviously to use all of it. Otherwise, it would not have new construction, reconstruction, and demolition listed. So my point is, we, as your citizens, need to know what rules apply. Because at the last council meeting, you were all told this doesn't apply to anything in the historic district. And Taylor agreed. I need to know. Anyone here sit on the design review board that could tell me what Mr. Lafayette, what direction was given by Mr. Lafayette?
I mean, I think based on the reading of our ordinance, we do use those as standards, and we have tried to use those as standards.
Okay, so at the next design review board, when certain members of the design review board or Taylor Brill say that that doesn't apply, I can with certainty say the council says they do apply.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I just needed to know, because at the last meeting, like I said, falsehoods spread often enough become fact. And I just want to make sure I read this one way, and I don't like people taking your ordinances and twisting them around in their own interest. It's there for a reason. I agree with the ordinance, and I understand this, and I even created cheat sheets to help all the members when I was on the design review board. I was given a copy of the full standard when I started on the design review board, and I know you're still doing that because I provided the copy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Medici.
Mr. Medici, can I just
Yes.
listening to the dialogue here. I support what you're saying, and I believe what you're saying. However, I'm not sure I would, if I were you, I would go away saying that council agrees with that opinion, because they really haven't expressed themselves on that. It's really a legal question and our best source is the solicitor, so I would wait for if he's going to do something or write something up or express himself sometime on the applicability. That would be more definitive at this point than council doing something. Council as a whole wants to weigh in on that, then they will, and I wish they would do that. But I wouldn't necessarily assume that council has done that. So just for your
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for your input. I just generally, I read enough contracts in my time to see when it says the word shall in there, there's no discussion.
Yeah,
So that's kind of the point I come from. So if anything is said, would one of you please forward it to me, because obviously we're kind of left in the dark.
Yeah, and just to be clear, and I'm not trying to be rude, but I work for council. I don't give out legal opinions to other people that when they ask me to do it, if they ask me for a legal
Yeah,
opinion, I give them a
that's
legal
for
opinion for it.
Wednesday, please.
Okay. No, I understand, and I would never have asked you that if it wasn't your own words. So, thank you.
We're adding it to the work session for Wednesday. Thank you, Mr. Medici. Mrs. Ina Medici.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak on such short notice. I have a question for council. I don't know if you can answer it today, but I would like to put that out there. I am interested in the long-term plan for the streetscape on Chillicothe Street, specifically because my business will depend upon the outcome of that decision, and I want to make sure that as we're planning for this business that I know what the rules are so that we don't have to redo it. So essentially we don't have to make a decision and go down one path and then change it and have to take another path.
And that is one of the goals, thank you. That's one of the goals that we have been working on, is to come up with a phased approach for budget reasons on the Uptown
Sure.
Streetscape. And
Absolutely.
I know that Mr. Cowhall, I'm going to put you in the hot seat because we haven't, I know we have been working on trying to identify a firm to work on that long term. Where do we go? Where do we, what's our next one
Sure.
that we are going towards to work? I know, like, do we go across the street or the next group up?
Yeah, so for council's edification and for the audience here as well, what we have here, what we have planned in the 2022 budget proposal is to engage with one of the firms that we solicited a proposal from that will take a comprehensive look for a kind of a comp plan specific to the Uptown District. So that's one of the sub-plans that we talked about with the comprehensive plan's passage. We would be in a position to go ahead and engage as soon as the budget's passed and New Year comes. The streetscape enhancements that are envisioned for not only parts of Main Street, both east and west of Chillicothe Street, but then going north to Chillicothe, probably at least till 2nd Avenue, and probably as far south as Jackson will be part of that plan. So we envision that plan process will also include some stakeholder and community engagement and meetings as well for input.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
You're welcome. Mr. Mike Walters.
Well, I'll just keep it brief. Two things. A good friend of mine owns a farm right outside of Plain City, and I told him at the last meeting I was here about the whole sewer expansion, so he was pretty excited about that. He wanted me to ask you guys, do you have a time frame of when you're going to go under the Big Darby? And the second thing is, has there any progress been made on the noise ordinance? That's it.
We did discuss the noise, the timer. We did discuss the noise ordinance at our work session, and so waiting.
Yeah, I was here.
Yes, and this is our. We're waiting on guidance from Mr. Lafayette. Yes, that's Mr. Rucker.
Okay.
So waiting. It'll be back on our next work session.
Okay.
It's back on the agenda for next Wednesday.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Cowhall, the other question on the treatment plant facility he had asked?
Going under the Big Darby.
Going under the Big Darby?
That's what, yeah, I thought that's what you guys had, I'd heard that's what was gonna happen with the McKittrick farm, you know, with the development going under, with the sewer.
So status update that I can share that's, I guess, public knowledge enough, is that the developer in question for that property, they're, I think, soliciting bids from a few utility construction firms. I believe they're due this week. And from there, they'll have pricing and be ready, I think, to engage with a firm to go ahead and do that boring underneath the Darby and then direct connect over to the sewer plants.
And will that be available for other developers going, you know, towards Dublin?
So yeah, so what the planning commission recommended to council, and council concurred, is that there's the sizing of the sanitary sewer main that's part of this project, or that project, is sized not only to take into account that specific development, but it was also sized to take in the larger tributary area. Okay. In conjunction with that, the way the utilities are being directed and the like, will be afforded a utility corridor, so that, let's say, properties further north up Butler Avenue will be able to tie in to that. They would gravity flow down to basically Butler and 161, that general vicinity, and then hit that force main system to the plant. There is some upsizing capacity for folks a little further to the east and slightly north, but then as topography rolls and also some wetlands and some regulated areas, majority of the rest of that further east and the like would actually hit south of 161 and would hit the plant further south down the creek and would enter into that zone from there.
Okay.
Thank you. And Mrs. Rochelle Pellegrin.
Hi, my name is Rochelle Pellegrin. I'm running for Village Council. I just wanted to introduce myself to everyone. I live right in here in Plain City, and I'm looking forward to sitting up there with you guys.
Thank you. And Ms. Lupton, that concludes all of our visitors this evening. All right, thank you very much. Moving out of visitors into the reports. July has been a busy month here in the village. After our last work session and meeting, staff and myself attended the Daily Needs Kids Camp. They hosted their own restaurant. I tell you, if you turn on the news and you get discouraged, just go to a function where children are learning valuable skill sets, and they cooked all the food, served us, and it was just a phenomenal program. So I want to give lots of praise to what Ms. Tamara Reed's doing at DNA with the children of our community. It was phenomenal. After that was our annual Steam Thresher show, and they did a wonderful, I heard it was record-breaking attendance this year. I know I helped to participate in the Touch-a-Truck event, and the parade was packed, and also could hear the truck pulls and tractor pulls happening. So it's just a wonderful event for the community to participate and see our heritage and how things have changed over the years. And then we're going to be, this week, I am assisting with our fire department, Mr. Adams. He helped to facilitate, I want to thank you and the fire department and the police department and the Jonathan Aller School District Transportation. They're helping to host a safety town for our incoming kindergartners of the Jonathan Aller School District. We have 60 youth and that are going through the different days. So tomorrow is poison control and swim safety. So our own village staff, lifeguards, are going to go and interact with the children. So that's been a exciting venture because we have not had that for this type of event. We've had something maybe 15 years ago, right, Chief, is what you were saying?
Not that long ago.
Okay,
So.
okay, so didn't want to date that long, but yes, and I know we are rounding out the summer with Rock the Clock so this coming weekend, and making sure that we have the parking down, and we'll be sending out information on road closures so that residents know when those times are that they're affected by. That is all I have for July. Fiscal Finance Director, Ms. Sonnet. Thank you. Chief McKee.
Thanks, Mayor. I would like to thank Chief Golden of the Marysville Police Department, Chief Deputy Morgan of the Union County Sheriff's Office, and Lieutenant Curry of the Ohio State Highway Patrol for their assistance with the sergeant position panel interviews. They took their time to come in on Monday and sit most of the day in the interview process. As the mayor indicated, the Steam Threshers event and the parade went very well. We just had a few minor incidents there. Saturday during the event was very well attended. Like you said, I think it was a record attendance. that time. I attended the Union County Advisory Board meeting. One of the discussions that we had were the fees for our marsh radios. I think they're still gonna be covered under the 911 levy. I also attended the Madison County Safety Communities Coalition concerning some upcoming events and the kickoff for Drive Sober, Get Pulled Over. That's coming up in August. And then Detective Greenbaum attended the cell phone investigations at the Ohio State Highway Patrol. And then lastly, like you indicated, Mayor, the Rock the Clock is this weekend. It sounds like it's going to be well attended. For that, I increased our presence, patrol officers' presence. I'd rather send guys home because there's not enough people there than have too many people there and not have enough police officers. So with that, Mayor, that's all I have at the time.
Thank you, Chief. And
Can I ask you a question about the parking for this rock the clock thing?
Yes.
I'm sure you're giving it a lot of thought, but how?
Actually, Mr. Dawson has taken care of all the parking and stuff and figured out where the parking's gonna be.
Okay.
And we've met with the fire department and ourselves and the village staff to go over that.
Okay, so you feel like there's adequate?
Who
Who knows, right, I got it. All right, I just wanted to check on it, thanks.
Mr. Dawson has went out and met with a lot of people and talked about where the park and stuff, and got permission at local businesses and property owners to park vehicles.
Okay.
thank you, Chief. Mr. Cathall, Village Administrator.
Yes, tonight, council just review a couple of agenda items. There's the enabling legislation will allow staff to go ahead and roll the bond anticipation notes that were part of the 21 budget. Just so council's aware, as we go into the 22 budget planning season with our meetings with personnel finance and CIP committees, we're also, as promised, working through a draft right now. I want to applaud Haley Lupton and our staff and doing the kind of 3-year review of our compensation plan, and we should have some results to share with you folks here in the very near future. Staff continues to work on our I&I reduction efforts. Into the league, we'll have proposals for all of our camera work and assessment work. Once that's completed, we'll be able to put together a bid package for that work. We'd like to have that as a work session item for Wednesday. We want to walk council through and get concurrence from council on direction on how to handle the disconnection process for our property owners and some options here. We actually we're looking at getting the best bang for your buck in terms of amount of dollars spent per residential unit equivalent, and we actually may be considering asking you as part of this work actually to put some storm sewer infrastructure in some areas that make a lot of sense that would up our inflow reduction credits. We want to walk you through that and what that process looks like and whatnot. We also have tonight, just as planned in the 21 budget, enabling legislation allows us to file our PWC application for the Open Road area stuff. Pretty standard perfunctory. You may have seen, I know Mr. Rucker has, since he can almost see it from his back porch, kind of on a good day. Gate Street, all of our paving is done. We did actually a final walkthrough this afternoon. Final signage and pavement markings will be completed hopefully tomorrow. And we should be able to be opening that road up to the general public. I'm hopeful by Wednesday midday. Happy to report that unless there's some surprises I don't know, we came in within our budget and within allowances on that project. Doesn't mean there weren't some tough conversations out there in the field, but we got that taken care of. Our 21 paving program should start within the next couple of weeks, according to our contractor, although that's always subject to change with our paving firms in the area. Depends on how much rain they get and how backlog they get. As council is aware, we had to reject the bids on the streetscape bid. That went to the paper. The rebid went to the paper today. Plans will be available Thursday for all interested bidders. We're also looking at a bid addendum on the uptown parking lot based on some of the bid results and the like that we got. And with that, Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Cathall? Thank you. Mr. Rucker, President Pro Tem.
We have our next work session next Wednesday here at 6:30. And I think we already have a number of agenda items. If you have more agenda items, just get them in by Monday, please.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Lafayette, Solicitor.
Just been working with Mr. Cowhall on the various utility issues and reviewing documents regarding that, as well as a few other items as to day-to-day operations, nothing major.
Thank you. Capital improvements, Ms. Giano.
Yes, I know we had some scheduling issues, as Mr. Reed knows. We had a lot of emails back and forth towards the end of July, so we weren't able to meet, but we will be meeting this month, and I'm sure between the two of us, we will have a full agenda.
It's Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, it is Wednesday. I think that is, it's Wednesday.
Yeah.
That is our,
Yeah, I got it.
Finance.
oh, okay,
Personal finance.
okay, I'm sorry.
It's Wednesday?
Oh, this Wednesday,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm
Yeah,
thinking
kinda
next.
snuck up on you, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It did
Wednesday.
sneak
You
up
have
on
I didn't know there'd be.
So we have one this one?
No,
It's the last Wednesday.
No, I don't, I'm sorry, personnel finance.
But personal finance is meeting here this
Yes.
Wednesday.
Yes.
Is there
I'm
also
sorry.
another meeting here? One Wednesday?
Design review board is meeting.
Let's talk,
Okay.
Nathan, about what
That works.
Okay.
I need from you for that November.
So,
Okay, double booking. And you guys are on this week and I'm already into August. My apologies. Yes, okay. Thank you, Ms. Giamo. BZA, Mr. Terry.
Yes, we had a well-attended meeting last Tuesday with a conditional use variance, a appeal of a decision, and also just some discussion items. We will have the findings of fact and the vote tomorrow evening here at 6:30, or yeah, it's at 6:30. So we'll be here tomorrow to finalize that.
Now, I heard a couple of complaints that people wrote letters after receiving a letter that said that if they wrote a letter, they would be read during the meeting, and then their letters were not read. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, I can address it. It's the BZA, I guess I can only say is the notice shouldn't have said that, is all I can say.
Okay, but the notice did say that.
Right,
So,
but it's a board of zoning, the BZA has accepted the letters, we weren't reading them into the record, but the letters were accepted, they're part of the record, BZA members review them. But as far as reading them into the record at the hearing, it's a quasi-judicial hearing, witnesses are sworn, you know, we have to take sworn testimony, we can't take letters in from people that we don't know or haven't presented them personally. So in the future, we'll make sure that that's clarified.
so the letter will be changing then?
Yes, the notice will be, yeah.
Is there a difference? I mean, I understand the difference. You just don't get to hear the letter
Right.
Correct.
being read, but it's in the record, in the minutes.
Well, it's in the record to the extent that, you know, again, BZA was advised at the hearing. Again, we know that people had submitted that information. We wanted to make sure that because of the notice issue that it had indicated it would be read into the record, we couldn't do that because you have to have sworn testimony. But the BZA would accept the letters and give them, you know, give them deference, given the nature of the evidence.
They had it in front of them. They read it.
Right.
Okay.
I would reassure anyone that the voice of the citizens was well heard.
And I think that was a concern, that was a concern that I got.
I would not
Right.
share that concern.
Okay.
Yeah, and the letters themselves, I believe, I mean, I don't think that they really stated much more. We had numerous witnesses, and I think they're, you know, they're redundant to some degree, but obviously they'll.
Is that a video conference? Not, I mean, I know the members have to be there, but is it publicly viewable by video?
No.
Okay,
Is it? It was recorded?
okay, so, yeah, so people can come to our committee meetings if they're held here, because we have the video link capability, and that's good for people to know, I think, that they can, especially if they have an interest in the meeting, so. And that's where the reading of the letter would have been useful, but we're not gonna do that, so. let's move.
Thank you. Planning and zoning, Ms. Pine is not here, but we did not meet this month, and I believe we have a meeting for August 18th for planning and zoning.
but she's
With the
no
archives.
longer. a
She's
member.
no longer the member, that's correct, so, I guess I will be giving the update on planning and zoning. Yes, thank you. Parks and Recreation,
I have nothing different.
thank you. Personnel and Finance, Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Mayor. The Personnel and Finance meeting is this Wednesday at 7 here in the admin building. It's a joint meeting with CIP. So given the short preparation time, I had a pretty comprehensive agenda laid out that would need to be approved by the committee, but I'll talk to the administrator about what's on there and what should be highlighted. The main things I think he's probably ready for it would be the 2022 budget schedule and any changes planning. We can have a discussion about the amount and use of contingency funds. This has been bounced around between myself and the administrator and some committee members. And so we have pretty good opinions individually about what we think about that. We can have a conversation about the accounting for depreciation encumbrances, which I raised an issue about that, and I think it needs to be addressed, just to make sure all the little pieces go in the right places for depreciation. We can the wage and benefit review stuff, if whatever you have available for that would be fine, because we're not ready to start that. I just mainly want to make sure that it's in progress, and we're going to end up at some time in a timely way of being able to get that started and completed before the end of the year. So having said that now, I had a suggestion that perhaps this would be a good time to consider, I'm going to say this is never popular, but pay increases for council members and for the mayor. They haven't been adjusted in some time. And so just give that some thought. We're not going to address that at this, well, we might bring it up as a topic, but not any substantial discussion. And so we can have that discussion in council about whether you want to go there or not. And a new concept would be covering some council members' expenses and an amount that might be appropriate to appropriate for those kinds of costs. And I'm sure the mayor has costs associated with our job too. So those would be topics for personnel and finance. And a future possibly thing, because I think council or committee members probably want to think about this because it's a serious and big issue that we need to get settled or put in cast in concrete, and that is the level of control in the budgeting process. There's way too many different opinions on what the current level of control is, and probably just as many opinions as about what it should be. And by level of control in budgeting, I'll just give you a quick highlight of it. There's about 5 different levels of control specified by the state auditor. Fund level control is not statutorily acceptable as a level of control, which means you can't just say, okay, we appropriate such and such amount of money in the water and sewer fund, okay? That's not a level of control that's acceptable. You have to have another level of detail in that fund and be held to it. And then there's like 3 or 4 more levels of control in the budget that's given to the auditor for approval. So I think we need to have that discussion about how the village is budgeted and to what extent council provides oversight and to what guidelines the staff has held in terms of spending money. So that would be that's gonna be, if the committee wants to talk about that, we can, I hope we do. So, I'm sure we're not ready for a full-blown discussion because committee members need to study, the rules. So, I'm sorry for the long report, Mayor, but that's, there's some big stuff coming up at the end of the year. All of those things that I mentioned are really important.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Mayor, if I may, can I ask a question?
Oh,
Actually, I have a question.
yes.
Renee, have we been getting dinged on audits for level of control issues? Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question, Mayor?
Is not during the visitor section of our meeting, so I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Thank you. Fire Board, Mr. Rucker.
We have our next meeting, Thursday, August 5th, and I will not be there. I believe Shannon is going to be my fill-in for that.
Thank you.
Design Review Board, we have our meeting this Wednesday, 6:30, and apparently it's gonna be in the conference room.
Design review board should be in here, personnel finance.
Oh, okay, all right,
It's okay.
okay. So we'll be in here, and
Okay,
that makes more sense, actually.
thank you, Mr. Rucker. Moving out of reports into old business, and there is no old business, so moving into new business. First reading ordinance.
I'm sorry, did you write down the Rules Committee?
Yes, you are correct, I did. I apologize, I thought to add in.
It's just a quick report. We have another evolution of the rules in the packet for council, and I hope people had a chance to review it. It's a discussion item for tonight. We have not been able to have an in-person meeting yet, but at some time when it's really important, I'm sure we will. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Okay, moving out of old reports into old business, and there is no old business, so moving into new business. First reading ordinance 22-2021, an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of unvoted general obligation notes in the maximum aggregate principal amount of $1,450,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying the costs of various municipal public improvement projects.
Mayor?
Yes.
I just have a question about this one. I assume this is a rollover? Okay. And the benefit would be of doing the rollover, just for the record?
For the rollover is that as we have in the 21 budget, we weren't contemplating paying off the entire principal amount this year. We've set this up, as council probably remember, well, some folks in council remember, when we did this, we had a certain amount of borrowing that the village temporarily did for various projects back in like 2017, 2018. A portion of those were bonded in one aggregate omnibus bond, about a 27-year bond. There was a little bit left over, I think at the time maybe 1.7 million or so, that was put in a note because of the very nice interest rate environment that we are still living in, and the expectation that we pay that down and actually have over a 15-20 year period as a comparison, a interest cost savings by rolling a note annually, paying down some principal, and do it that way.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to know what's going on here.
First reading ordinance 23-2021, an ordinance approving a supplemental appropriation of funds and amendments to the Village of Plain City 2021 budget. Request waiver of second reading on this one.
Motion to waive the second reading.
Second.
Rucker,
Yes.
Giano,
Yes.
Heineman,
Yes.
Reed,
No.
Terry,
Yes.
Motion to approve ordinance 23-21.
Second.
Terry.
Mayor, I'll be voting against this appropriation, not because I have a problem with the amount of money, but there's some issues in the wording that probably to council don't matter, but they do to me, so I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Terry,
Yes.
Reed,
No.
Heineman,
Yes.
Giammo,
Yes.
Rucker,
Yes.
First reading resolution 26-2021, a resolution authorizing the village administrator to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission state capital improvement and or local transportation improvement programs and to execute contracts as required, and a request of the waiver of second reading on this one as well.
Motion to waive second reading of resolution 26/2121.
Second.
Reed,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Rucker,
Yes.
Giammo,
Yes.
Heineman,
Yes.
Motion to approve resolution 26/2021.
Second.
Giammo,
Yes.
Rucker,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Heineman,
Yes.
Okay, moving out of new business into discussion items, we have the council rules as our first discussion item. And I know from our last meeting, Ms. Giammo, you were out of town, and so we weren't unable to meet.
Nothing really discussed until you guys meet them, right?
Correct. Mr. Reed, what is your availability? And we can go ahead and August opens up a little bit more.
For a rules committee thing? I'm pretty much available during the day next, I don't know, I have to check my calendar, really. If you want to get together with Lauren, it's probably going to be good for me. That's because I'm a lot easier, I think, than you are or Lauren.
Okay.
Because aren't you going to be out of town sometime?
Yeah, August is a lot more flexible for me, but maybe we can get some dates that work well and send them over to you to coordinate.
The which?
For the rules committee.
Yeah, what day?
I don't have them now, but would it be helpful if the mayor and I pick some that would work both for us and then send them over to you to see if they work?
Tuesdays are good, Fridays are good, nobody wants to meet on Friday. And obviously Mondays when we don't have a council meeting, so.
That's
Okay.
helpful, thank you.
Yes, probably the next week, more so than getting closer to school starting, but okay, thank you. So we will go ahead and schedule that meeting and move that to the next, to put it on the next meeting.
Fine.
Okay, street parking. Mr. Cathal, is this what we had discussed?
Yeah, so, council, what you should have seen in your packet is Ms. Luck put together a little summary memo, for your consideration and review. Meeting with the fire department and our police department, public works and others. We identified, certain areas of the community where we have just witnessed, just by folks, exercising their abilities to park in the public right of way, some areas of concern that create from time to time some periodic bottlenecks, especially for safety service vehicles, and it's at times potentially hinders their responses to incidents. And so we provided a map and kind of a pictorial illustration of those areas so we can all get our minds around. And what we're proposing, if council wishes to proceed, is that what we could move forward on would be to send out communication to folks on those streets along those areas that could be affected by this, to stress to them that this is what we would see from the village standpoint as a pilot program effort, that something that we want, that council's desires of trying, and then an invitation here later this year to circle back around with those residents, those property owners and tenants and the like, and get feedback to see, is it working, is it not working, are there some unintended consequences we didn't think about, and so we can make a more informed decision going forward. But wanted to just raise that with the council tonight so you get a chance to review things, think about things. If we need more time, we could obviously talk about it next Wednesday. It's totally your court.
Would it be possible to lump in that Napa Alley, looking at Napa Alley as a one-way street, as we're talking about the parking as well?
That could definitely
it seems.
Speaking of accident, I think it's just a matter of time before you have an accident there.
I know I've met the Amazon truck a time or two, driving through there.
Mr. Carl, we won't be during the pilot program, because I read it, that's like right outside our house. You're not gonna be like, are we gonna be ticketing or towing during the pilot program process? Or are we giving some form of grace period?
Well, I would think that a new traffic control device, like a no parking area or like, I mean, I can't speak for the police department, but there might be a little, just like when we change speed limits or the like, there may be a little bit of a educational program ahead of, you know. But yes, Mr. Terry, if you habitually park in a no parking zone in this town,
It's actually around
weeks
the
on
corner.
end, I can't, no promises.
I'm just saying, one day we're there, one day we're no parking, one day we park.
Exactly.
Give a little heads up.
Exactly, no.
Most likely we'll probably just ask them to move the car.
That's what I figured.
Civic lot,
Thank you.
or your car.
I'm on offer.
Any other questions on this? Do you want staff to proceed forward, or do we need to take it to work session, or?
It's a safety issue. I said it last time. If they want to run a pilot program, I don't think we should be getting in the way of the police and fire safety issues.
Yeah, I agree.
So thumbs up.
Okay.
All right.
Sherry,
Yeah, that's all.
Mr. Reed?
What?
I want to make sure, I heard from Mr. Terry and Ms. Giamo. I want to make sure I hear
Street
from.
parking?
Yes.
Yeah, anything you can do to make it safer and better for the residents is a good thing.
Mr. Rucker? Okay,
Begrudgingly.
all right.
Good.
Okay, moving into nomination of Personnel Board of Appeals members, and I know that, that was on from last work session, and, just wanted to keep this.
I wasn't coming along. Have you found many candidates?
I have not, advertised publicly. I wanted to identify, like, if we have anybody in the community that, and outside the community. I wanted to look at other, municipalities that has the Board of Appeals and see that how they are set up.
Yeah, like, I think it's a good idea you're taking time to fill this, because this is for the employees especially, it's a very important committee, and they would expect some expertise and work to be done in understanding what's going on, because they're gonna, that committee's gonna have their future in their hands, so.
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Can we discuss the audience wanting to ask questions, or should I put that on a work session?
Do you, well, I guess this is also our meeting, so do you feel that audience can ask questions? Because we are always.
Well, they don't know what we're gonna be discussing. So if they, in the middle of a meeting, have a question, they don't know at 6 o'clock, they're gonna wanna ask a question about that.
Mayor, here's what, procedurally, this is what you could do. You could ask unanimous consent to hear a question from the visitor. And if nobody objects, then you can do it.
That is true. That is, does anybody have any objections?
No objection.
No objection.
Okay, Mr. Lane, you?
Yeah, sorry.
No.
I was just wondering, Mr. Reed, what do you feel you'll be compensated for extra as a council?
I just think we should look at the issue. I've been asked by other people, you know, if it's appropriate to do that.
But I mean, like,
well,
in your head, you must.
If I were to justify it, I'd say there's a lot of work that goes into being a council person. If you haven't been one, I'll just tell you, there's at least a half a dozen, maybe more disciplines that you have to spend a lot of time studying and preparing for. And
which would
if
be
you talk
under the
about law
original pay
enforcement,
raise that you were talking about.
yeah, I just wanted to bring up the topic for discussion to see how other council
No, I
members
understand
felt
that.
about it.
So you want a pay raise for council, which I understand.
No, I didn't say that. I wanted to have a discussion.
Discussion about it.
Yes.
But then you also said it may be additional compensation for extra things. that
For
council does.
expenses.
As in?
For like, well, and see, most of the council members work from home, and it involves supplies for like normal office supplies that you might need.
So you want to pay extra for pencils?
If you're going to be sarcastic with your questions, then I'm done answering them.
Trust me, I'm
No.
very serious.
Well, No, I probably wouldn't expense
Okay.
council, but council members do a lot of traveling. For example, mileage would be an expense that they should be compensating for, I think. But it's up to council to decide that.
Okay.
But thanks for your questions.
Thank you. And that's how we'll ask unanimous consent going forward, since we are kind of getting new back into meeting.
I've
And
just always wondered, it's like, you know, nobody knows what we're discussing. How are they gonna know they wanna ask a
ask
question?
a question or be a visitor at the
Yeah.
beginning of the meeting. That is very fair, and especially, you know, you are our largest crowd probably to date at a council meeting, so thank you. We have no other items formally listed as discussion items. We have executive sessions to go into, but at this time, we will not be coming back with any further business. If anybody has any, we will not be coming back, so we will just adjourn the meeting.
Motion to go into executive session pursuant to ORC 121.22G2 to consider the purchase of property for public purposes, the sale of property, competitive bidding, or the sale or other disposition of unneeded, obsolete, or unfit for use property in accordance with section 505.10 of the revised code.
Second.
Terry?
Yes.
Reed?
I didn't think I did, and that's why I was there to stop it.
Mr. Reed?
Sir.
Roll call voting for us to go into executive session.
Oh, yes.
Heineman,
Yes.
Gianna. Yes. Rucker.
Yes.